Hi, my name is Mercedes Gump. I am from Group 5 for AGR 201 on the online section. In this video, I just want to explain my experience through one of the events that I did um, that I thought was most beneficial to me. Our group topic is on sexual orientation, and the experience I'm going to share with you is an interview with Lowell Kane, who is the director of the Purdue LGBTQ Center. The grand opening of the LGBTQ Center was actually this past summer on July 16th, and Lowell Kane was um, appointed the director on July 2nd. So Kane comes from Texas A&M, and there he was a program coordinator for their LGBTQ Center on their campus, which started in 2007. I just wanted to get a little bit of background on him first, and one of the first things that he told me was that there's only 145 approximately LGBTQ counselors across the country, which is crazy because if you think about it, the LGBTQ society is actually really big. So to think that there's only that many counselors that these LGBTQ people have to talk to is extremely, extremely small. Um, so as I talked to Lowell, one of the first things that we had talked about was just the new organization in general, the new center, and how everything was going. And one of my main ideas of this interview with him was to know a little bit more about the individuals that come into this center and get a little bit more detail and information on LGBTQ individuals. So as we started the interview, I asked him the kind of people and age group wise, what was the most common that came into the center. As he went on to describe, the center is very well balanced, he said, between genders. So it's pretty even between the amount of male and females that come into the center. Something that didn't shock me was that the majority of visitors at the center are first and second year students, which is understandable because first and second year students are taking that time to really adapt to university life and are trying to cope with, all different kinds of factors that play when you're an LGBTQ. And, there's discrimination against them, wherever they go. And it's really hard, especially living in the dorm life and stuff like that, to really adapt to this new society. He had said that third and fourth year students, which I understand, have been able to establish more of a stable environment and sustainable networks for them. And they also didn't get the experience of this new center that we have on campus. So by this time, they have already, come in comfort and found these suitable safe zones for themselves. Lowell also explained that the center is extremely diverse because when you think about it, there are so many different races and genders and LGBTQ on top of it. They are all coming together in this one center. So it's not just dealing with diversity of different cultures or race. It's dealing with different sexual orientations as well. One thing that was really surprising and felt really good to me was that a quarter to a third of the visitors that come into the LGBTQ Center are not members or are not LGBTQ. They are strictly just people who support LGBTQ, which I think is really great. As I have friends that are LGBTQ, I understand that it's really difficult for them. And one of the main things that they struggle with is finding people who really support them and accept them for who they are. So to know that there's that many visitors that go into the center and just to support these individuals is a really good feeling. And I feel that really gives a good kickoff to this center since it is new on campus. As Lowell explained, and as I understood, that the LGBTQ center is basically a safe zone and a stress-free zone for these individuals to come in and be able to relax. And when they come to the center, it's really the only time of day that they're really able to relax and be themselves and not worry about discrimination or any of the daily, stresses that they have to deal with. As we went on with the interview, I wanted to know a little bit more about what strictly did he think was the hardest things that LGBTQ individuals have to cope with. I mean, it's obvious that they deal with everyday discrimination, and that's a big thing that they have to deal with. And, family members not accepting them for who they are and stuff like that. So I think that that was really important. But I just wanted to know a little more background and a little more detail about what he thinks the hardest thing for them is to cope with. And the top things that he said that he believes that are the hardest things to cope with for LGBTQ individuals is taxes, marriage, serving our country, adopting children, and their citizenry, which is really understandable. I know this past election was really stressful for a lot of LGBTQ people because, one candidate supported gay marriage and the other wasn't so much for gay marriage. So that put a lot of stress on them. And I think that, you know, they want to be able to live how they're happy. And I personally think that they should be too. And I don't believe that they should be judged or discriminated against just because they're different or they have different feelings. Um, in adopting children, a lot of agencies, frown upon, gay couples trying to adopt or lesbian couples trying to adopt. As we went on, Lowell explained that LGBTQ people don't really have a place to fit in, and how even at home, it's very unlikely that there's another LGBTQ individual in their household. So, I mean, even at home, they're kind of out of place, but they're in their comfort zone. So when they come to a university, it's really hard for them to have to start all over and find, a new comfort zone and a new, you know, group that they can really gel with and, get along with. Family and friends are actually, as you can imagine, their strongest supporters. As I talked to Lowell, we talked about a comment that's called the sticky stigma. And basically, what this is when a straight person, like I said earlier, the majority of individuals that go into the LGBTQ center are there to support them. And sticky stigma is basically when a straight person that supports LGBTQ um, are second guessed by others just because they're supporting LGBTQ, and automatically they think, oh, well, if they're supporting LGBTQ, then what do you think, is their sexual orientation? So they automatically get, classified into that group. Another thing that we did is a girl in our group, Jessica, she's part of the rugby team at Purdue, and a lot of the members on her team are either bisexual or lesbian. And as Jess explained to us that she's automatically classified into that group as being a lesbian or bisexual because she's on the rugby team. Whether she is or not, she still gets classified as that because of, the just the classification that we as individuals in our society has as the type of people that play rugby. Um, as we went on and talked about how a lot of the LGBTQ individuals are disowned by their families and how they're not welcome at home and how they get kicked out. Lowell shared with me a statistic that was really shocking to me, and that was that 40% of LGBTQ people are homeless, and that's because they're thrown out of their homes. They're not welcome there anymore. And to think about that, it's really hard to imagine you getting kicked out of your own home because your parents or your family don't support you for who you are. And I asked Lowell why he thought that, and one of the main reasons is religion. And religion is something that's extremely hard to fight against, especially within your family. And with a lot of religions, LGBTQ is not acceptable. So I just learned, and it really opened my eyes to see that I could never imagine getting kicked out of my home because my parents, didn't accept me for who I was. Another shocking statistic that Lowell shared with me was that LGBTQ individuals are 70% more likely to attempt suicide because they don't feel welcome in their society, and the discrimination that many people in our societies today have and, force on LGBTQ individuals forces them to feel this way and, makes them feel guilty because they don't want to accept themselves for who they are and they're not happy. And Will shared a story with me as well. When he was in Texas, he had gone out to dinner, and the waitress asked him and his boyfriend to leave. And I asked him why. And he explained to me that in 29 states in the U.S., it's legal and it's okay for any type of service to be refused to those that are LGBTQ. That's 29 states. If you think about that, it's really hard to imagine going out to dinner with someone that you love and being told that you have to leave just because you're LGBTQ. And I mean, that's heart wrenching, and I can't even imagine being in that situation. Another thing that I wanted to talk to Lowell about was, what's the most common and least common sexual orientations? And we got on the topic of transgenders, which is the least common sexual orientation. But yet, transgenders individuals receive the most discrimination. And he told me that more than 67% of transgender individuals will experience or have experienced some kind of physical abuse. Which, to me, it was just jaw dropping to me to think that, more than half of the society of transgendered individuals has to physically experience abuse just because they're different. And throughout this course, we learned that we are all so similar. And, to think that discrimination is really that bad against, LGBTQ individuals is just sickening. When you think about transgendered individuals as well, you also learn that they obviously deal with a lot of male versus female advantages, disadvantages, and personal difficulties. If you're transgender, do you want to use the male or female bathroom? And whatever one you choose, you're going to be judged, no matter what you do. And, if you want to be of one gender or the other, and you're going in and you want to get surgical processes done, it's a lot harder, and it's not that easy. And as Lowell told me, for any transgender that, say, has more of a male appearance, when they go in and they want some kind of body change, it's really hard that they even get insurance. And Lowell explained to me that it's required that they must see a therapist, and to be able to have physical changes done, a lot of times they have to be diagnosed with some kind of mental disorder. And he said the most common mental disorder that transgenders are diagnosed with is called GID, which is General Identity Disorder. And he went on to explain to me that the only way that this disorder is 100% cured is by a surgical process. Now, if you think about that, transgenders have to be diagnosed with a mental disorder and are saying that they can only be 100% cured if they change their body or their appearance. Now, I understand that transgendered want to be more comfortable in their body, and I get that, but I do not think that it should be that difficult for an individual to be able to do that. I mean, it's unacceptable that we make it so hard just because someone's different for them to change the way that they want to be just to be happy. We also discussed, different, slang words and terms that are used like gay and how they've become such common words in our, everyday lives, and just kind of traits that individuals pick up on. And one that we really got into a discussion about is homophobia. And as we sat there and talked, we realized, and I was able to realize, that homophobia isn't hereditary. When you think about it, you aren't born a homophobe. It's something that you learn, and you learn from the people in your society, the people that are around you when you're growing up. And a perfect example of it is when you were in kindergarten and you were in preschool. You held hands with, someone that was the same gender as you and didn't think of it as being a big deal. Sexual orientation wasn't a big deal to you. It wasn't a problem. You didn't see anything wrong with it. But once they get older, all of a sudden, it's like, okay, that's not okay anymore. And it's like, why all of a sudden is it not okay? When you were young, you didn't think anything of it. And it's because you're really adapting and you're really taking in all of the discrimination on LGBTQ individuals from those that are surrounding you. And, their opinions are, becoming your opinions. And what Lowell explained to me and what, we had come to conclusion with is that there's high hope that these ideas can be unlearned. But it all depends on what you take in from those around you and what you believe. It's a system of individual decision versus something that is, part of the community. It's more of individually what you think and not letting anything around you affect what you think. If you think that LGBTQ individuals, that there's nothing wrong with that, that's great because I feel the same. And from doing this project, I feel that I'm able to understand them a lot more. And, I really feel for them. And I just want others to know that those who discriminate against them, I want them to experience what these LGBTQ individuals really struggle with. Another thing, and one of the final things that we had talked about, is how education is the most powerful way that we can overcome the oppression, and that the universities really need to set a good example and really need to role model these traits, you know, for all of the students on their campuses to be able to, learn and adapt to these new ideas and to realize that LGBTQ individuals are really not that different, and there's no reason that we should discriminate them. And when you think about discrimination in our country, a lot of people will say that it's not there anymore, but it is. Unfortunately, discrimination is still there, and it's in everyday life, and people struggle with it every day. And especially against LGBTQ people, it's something that they, struggle with, almost every minute of every day. And it's just because they're different. Um, when you think about the discrimination of LGBTQ people in our society, you think of, that it's not that bad. And when you compare it to other countries, it really isn't that bad, but it still needs to make a change. Lowell discussed with me some of the other countries and how they discriminate against LGBTQ people. And a few examples are in Uganda, they have a bill that's called Kill the Gays, and they go out and literally kill all of the gay people. In Ethiopia, it's required that any LGBTQ individual serves the minimum of 5 years in prison. And in Iran, it was sickening to me to realize what they do is they go out and they seek all these gay and lesbian individuals or anyone that's LGBTQ, and they hang them. And not just hang them, in, a separate area of, their community. They hang the lesbians and the gays and any LGBTQ individual in the town square. They really feel that it's something that is extremely, extremely wrong. And to think that, these individuals, LGBTQ individuals, are suffering and have to live with this kind of lifestyle is just, it's just heart-wrenching. And Lowell left me with a quote at the end of our interview, and what he said was, "We have come a long way, but we have a long way to go." And I believe that's true, and that's what I've really learned from this CIP project, is that I've really learned and really have been able to connect myself with these individuals of the LGBTQ society. And I really want to do whatever I can to try and help these individuals and to try and get the word out and have others of our society that do still discriminate and do, cause these physical, mental abuses to these individuals, that they're really not that different. And I want in some way to be able to explain to them and try to let them feel what these individuals have to go through every day because they're discriminated against. So throughout this CIP presentation, along with all the other events that we did, I feel that I have a completely different outlook, and I really am able to connect with these individuals more than I was able to before. And I feel a lot more at peace with myself because before I was going on what I thought I knew, and from friends and family members that are LGBTQ. But overall, I mean, this CIP project has really touched me and has really helped me grow as an individual. And I hope that through this, I can get out there and I can put the word out and I can try and help these LGBTQ individuals become more comfortable and form a better society for all of them. Thank you.